Okay, if you're gearing up for your anesthesia exams, you know the neck is, well, it's complex and pretty high-stakes territory, right? So in this explainer, we're going to draw a crystal clear roadmap through one of its most critical structures, the cervical plexus. Think of this as your personal guided tour, designed for both your clinical practice and, of course, for exam success. So let's dive right in. Here's our game plan. We'll start by understanding the terrain, the fascial layers of the neck. Then we'll actually map out the plexus itself, making sure we know the key branches. From there, we'll jump into the three main blocking techniques, talk about when and why we use them, and then finally, we'll look at how modern ultrasound has completely changed the game. So let's start with the big question, the one that really brings us all here. You've got a patient, they're scheduled for a carotid endarterectomy or maybe a thyroidectomy. How in the world do you provide really good anesthesia to this incredibly dense and sensitive area, all while making sure the patient stays safe? Well, the answer lies right here, in this beautiful, intricate web of nerves, the cervical plexus. It's basically the neurological superhighway of the neck. If we can understand how to safely put up roadblocks on these routes, we can achieve our goal. But hold on. Before we can navigate the nerves, the highways, we have to understand the landscape they're built on. And that means we need to get to grips with the deep cervical fascia. This cross-section shows it perfectly. Think of these layers of fascia as really clever packaging. The investing fascia kind of shrink wraps the whole thing. The pretracheal fascia bundles up the trachea and thyroid, and the prevertebral fascia, that wraps around the vertebrae and deep muscles. Knowing these compartments is absolutely crucial because they control exactly where our local anesthetic is going to go. Okay, we know the terrain. Now let's map the network itself. Now listen up, because for your exams, the single most important concept to nail down is the division of this plexus into two totally different sets of branches, superficial and deep. So what is this thing really? At its core, the cervical plexus is a network formed from the front branches of the first four cervical nerves, C1 through C4, and it has two main jobs: sensory innervation for the skin and motor innervation for the muscles. Simple as that, feeling and moving. Now this slide is fantastic because it visually separates those two jobs. Over on the left, you see the superficial branches. They pop out from behind the sternocleidomastoid muscle, and these guys are purely sensory. They're all about feeling in the skin of your neck, your shoulder, and your upper chest. Then on the right, where the muscle is pulled back, you see the deep branches. These are almost all motor. They're the ones that control the muscles. And tucked away in those deep branches is one celebrity nerve you absolutely have to know for your exams. It's the phrenic nerve. It comes from C3, C4, and C5, and here's the kicker. It is the only motor supply to the diaphragm. This is so important because accidentally blocking it is one of the biggest risks of a deep block. You knock this out, and you've paralyzed one side of the patient's diaphragm. Okay, anatomy's down. Now let's get practical. How do we actually block this plexus? Well, there are three main ways to do it, and each one targets a different depth and a different set of nerves. This table right here, this is pure gold for revision. It lays it all out. The superficial block, that's your safest bet. You're just targeting the sensory nerves right under the skin. The deep block, that's the most powerful one. You're going right for the nerve roots themselves, but it also carries the biggest risks, including that phrenic nerve palsy we just talked about. And the intermediate block, well, that's a nice happy medium, hitting that sweet spot between the two layers. You know, before ultrasound was everywhere, the deep block was done using landmarks, just like this. You'd literally draw a line from the mastoid process down to a bony bit on C6 called Chassignac's tubercle. Then you'd inject along that line, feeling for the transverse processes of the vertebrae to find the nerve roots. It worked, but you can imagine doing this blind came with some pretty serious risks. And those serious risks are exactly why it's so important to understand the full picture. So let's connect the dots. When do we actually use these blocks, and what are the specific dangers we're trying to avoid? The list of applications is actually huge. I mean, the classic one is carotid endarterectomy because it lets you keep the patient awake to check their brain function. But it's also amazing for thyroid surgery, clavicle surgery. You can even use it just to make putting an essential line more comfortable. It's a really versatile tool in our kit. And we're not just guessing here. This stuff is backed by solid evidence. The huge Gala trial, which is quoted here, basically found that for carotid surgery, there was no difference in the big, scary outcomes, stroke, heart attack, death, between doing it under local versus general anesthesia. It's a powerful statement. And that evidence has had a real impact. As of 2021, more than a quarter, over 26% of all carotid endarterectomies were being done under local or regional. So this isn't some niche technique, it's a mainstream, evidence-based option.
So let's talk risks. The crucial thing to remember is the trade-off with depth. For a superficial block, you've got the standard risks: hematoma, maybe a bit of nerve irritation. But with a deep block, you get all of those, plus a whole new list of much more serious problems. You could knock out the phrenic, vagus, or hypoglossal nerves. You could cause Horner syndrome. And worst of all, you could accidentally inject into a major blood vessel or even into the spinal fluid.
And that scary list of risks is precisely why the field has moved on. So let's talk about the modern approach and how technology has totally changed the game for safety. But first things first, technology doesn't replace good fundamentals. The whole procedure always starts with proper patient positioning. Head turned away, neck nice and relaxed, you have to give yourself the best possible window to see the anatomy. And here it is. This is the magic of ultrasound. Instead of just feeling for bones, we can see everything. Just look at that image. The C4 nerve root, labeled N, is sitting right there in its little groove on the transverse process. We can guide our needle right to the target with pinpoint accuracy. It's just incredible. And this next view just drives the safety point home. We can clearly see the big SCM muscle, we can see the fascial planes for superficial and intermediate blocks, and most importantly, we can see and avoid the carotid artery and the internal jugular vein. We're not guessing anymore. This is what a safe procedure looks like. So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Ultrasound isn't just a cool gadget. It fundamentally changes the procedure. It takes what used to be a blind, feel-based technique and turns it into a precise, real-time, visually confirmed intervention. This is the modern standard of care, period. And all this progress leads to a final question to chew on. We've gone from blind to visually guided. Now that ultrasound is the standard, what do you think the next big leap forward in nerve block safety is going to be? Where do we go from here? This whole deep dive was based on the fantastic 2023 article, The Cervical Plexus, by M.S. Jarvis, R. Sundara Rajan, and A.M. Roberts, which was published in BJ Education.